All right, here we go. So we have 4 different functions, and they have different names: f, g, h, and j. These are their names. And we are not composing them yet. We're just doing very simple operations. For example, I can add functions f and g, and I literally just add them together. So function f is just 2, and function g is 8x minus 6. So I literally add those functions together and combine like terms. So 2 minus 6 is negative 4. So just that. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see if any of these is going to be any harder. Not really. Let's try the next one. So j minus h, so where's function j? Right here, 3x. Minus this function, and since it has 2 parts, I'm just going to put parentheses to hold it together. Like that. So that's j minus h. We do need to distribute the subtraction, so it's going to be 3x minus negative makes plus 8x, and then minus positive is just minus. And then combining like terms, you get 11x minus 2. The next one we're just dividing. It looks like a fraction, but remember a fraction is just division. So g of x is on the top, and that's 8x minus 6. And I'm dividing all of that by function f, which is just the number 2. So you'll distribute your division, divide each term by 2, and you get 4x minus 3. So take a minute and see what you can do with 4 and 5 and 6. Notice for 5 that there's a 2 in there, and you'll just substitute 2 for the x's in function g and function h, and then subtract them. The other ones are just going to be in terms of x. Okay, let's see how you did. J times g of x. So it's a function of x, and we're going to multiply. One thing that was brought up is that we don't actually have to put in extra x into the answer. It's j times g of x. This x is the same one that we're talking about here and here and here and here. Okay? So we really just multiply j times g. So there's your j, 3x, and then there's your g, 8x minus 6, and you'll distribute. So you get 24x squared, and then minus 18x. Does anybody have any questions about why that's x squared and that one's x? Okay. This one is subtraction, and you can start it the same way if you want. You can do g minus h, or you can substitute 2 into each one, and then you can subtract it. I'm going to show you that way in case you want to do it that way. So g of 2 is 8 times 2 minus 6. And h of 2 is negative 8 times 2 plus 2. So that's going to be 16 minus 6, which is 10. And that's negative 16 plus 2, which is negative 14. And I get 24. That's one way to do it. Did anybody solve the problem that way? All right, who solved it a different way and still got 24? I know Nate did. Did anybody else solve it a different way and still get 24? So let me show you Nate's method, which also worked. Same problem. He just did g minus h first. So he did 8x minus 6 and then minus negative 8x plus 2. And distributing the minus, 8x minus 6 plus 8x minus 2, 16x minus 8, and then you put the 2 in. So you substitute the 2 here, so you have 16 times 2 minus 8, which is 32 minus 8 and 24. And it still works, right? Did anybody do something like that? Maybe you got as far as 16x minus 8? Did anybody start the problem that way? No? What did you do?
You just hit it, right, Carla?
The first one.
You did the first one? Okay. So either way works when you have a number for your x, okay? You can do it this way, or you can do it the same as you did the other problems and then put 2 in at the end. I'm going to leave that for a minute because I want to make sure that you write down the way that makes sense to you. And then we'll do the last one, which is actually pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to move this over here for a moment. Okay, j divided by f. So j is 3x and f is 2. You can leave your answer that way. Some people wrote 1.5x, that's fine too. Okay, but you can just leave it like that because that is simplified. Any questions on that one? Okay, now we get to the fun part. We get to the composition. Composition, g of f of x. This means that we're going to take function f and put it into function g. So you put an x into function f, and the output from that function becomes the input of the next function. And here's a picture. You put x into the function, the output becomes the input of the next function. Good morning, good morning. All right, let's see how that works in this table. Evaluate g of negative 2. Thank you. So negative 2 is the input. Negative 2 is the x. Let's look for the column that says g. The column that says g is right here. So when negative 2 is the input, what's the output? 7. It's 7. So g of negative 2 is 7. You see that? I skipped over the f column because this problem has nothing to do with f. But I'm not done because now it says take that answer and put it back into g. So the answer becomes the input. G of 7. So now I have to look when x is 7, what is g? See it? It's 3, good. So that's your final answer. Okay. I know that it's not easy to follow right away, but I want you to try the next one. It says g of f of 5. You're going to start on the inside, by doing f of 5. Okay, start with f of 5. Start on the inside, f of 5. So you have to look when x is 5, what is function f? And it's 5. Now that number becomes the input for the outside function. So now we're going to do g of this 5. So you go back to your x column. Here's 5, right? And function g is how much? Yeah. And that's your final answer. I'm going to give you a part C. We're going to do... It's hard because it has to match up. G of f of negative 2. G of f of negative 2. All right, on the inside we have f of negative 2. F of negative 2 is 0, so we're doing g of 0. Go back to the 0, and function g is how much? 3, yeah. So that's your final answer. Forgot to show you the step over here. We said f of negative 2 is 0, and then g of 0. All right, new problem. This time, function f is 3x minus 2, and function g is x squared. It's right here. See that? We're doing f of g of x, and we're not going to get a number for our answer. We're going to get an expression. So that means we're doing f of, instead of gx, we can put in x squared. Okay, so everywhere in function f where you see x, you're now going to put in x squared. Where did I get the x squared from? Up. G of x is equal to what? X squared, right. Okay, so now I'm going to write function f out, which is 3x minus 2, but instead of the x, I'm going to put in x squared. And it doesn't simplify, so I'm just done. All right, f of x. So our outside function is function f. Our inside function is also function f, which I'm going to put in 3x minus 2. All right, this is tricky. Wherever you see x, you're going to put in 3x minus 2. All right, so I'm going to take my outside function f, and it's 3x minus 2. That's my outside function. Now notice my inside function is also 3x minus 2. So I just put function 3x minus 2 into function 3x minus 2. The hard part is not simplifying. The hard part is setting it up. The hard part is knowing that's what it's going to look like. Okay? You guys can simplify this pretty easily now. You're going to multiply the 3 times the 3x minus 2 to get 9x minus 6. And then minus 2. And combine like terms to get 9x minus 8. All right, I want you to try C. All right, starting with my inside function f of x, I'm going to replace it with 3x minus 2. Then I take function g and I replace the x in function g with 3x minus 2. So function g is x squared. And instead of x, I'm going to put in 3x minus 2. That's the hardest part, is knowing how to set it up. Now I'm actually going to square it. When you square it, you multiply it by itself. So you're going to have 3x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. (3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times negative 2 is negative 6x. Negative 2 times 3x is another negative 6x. And negative 2 times negative 2 is 4 by itself. And then I just have to combine like terms, and I kind of ran out of space, but I'll do it in the margin. So the last thing I have to do is combine like terms. So remember, when you square something, you multiply it by itself, and then you have to distribute. So my final answer, I'm going to put over here, 9x squared minus 12x plus 4. Because I combine the minus 6x and the minus 6x to get a minus 12x. We have two functions, f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 8, and g of x equals 2x plus 1. Which of those equations is quadratic, the first one or the second one? Look at the exponents. Which one is quadratic? The top one, because the exponent is squared. So the quadratic one is going to make that u shape. Okay, so this is function f here. And the other one is a linear equation in the form y equals mx plus b. And so this is function g. Okay. So I'm going to do g of f of 1. 1 is the x. I'm going to start where x is 1. And I'm going to go first to function f because f is on the inside. So I go to 1. And I have to go to function f, which is down here. And I think it's right here. You see that? So f of 1, when x is 1, you get negative 5 out. So now I'm going to do g of negative 5. F of 1 was negative 5, and now I'm going to do g of negative 5. So now I go to negative 5, and I have to go to function g, which is down here, and I get negative 9. I'm going to do B with you, and then I'm going to have you guys do C. All right, in B, I do f of g of negative 1. So start with g of negative 1. I go to negative 1, and then I go to g. And it looks like when I put in negative 1, I also get out negative 1. My y value there is negative 1. So now this part gave me negative 1. I do f of negative 1. So I go to negative 1, and then I have to go to function f, which is all the way down here. And I think that's negative 9. So I got negative 9 for both problems. And now you guys are going to do C. Start on the inside and do g of 0. Find where x is 0, and then go to function g. Done. Okay, here we go. G of 0. Find 0 on your x-axis and go to g. So g is the line, and it's right here. We get 1. So it's now f of 1. G of 0 was 1, so we put the 1 there. Now you find 1 on your x-axis, and you go to function f, which is the curve. It's right there, and we get negative 5. All right, the next one we can't actually find from the graphs because it doesn't have a number, it has x. So we're doing g of f of x. We're going to actually do this problem the way we did these down here. So this is going to be some good practice because I told you this is the most important part. All right, so we're going to take function f, which is all of this, and we're going to write g of all of this. X squared plus 2x minus 8. So we're putting all of that into function g. So notice I put x squared plus 2x minus 8 where it said f of x. All right, so now I'm looking at function g. It's 2x plus 1. I'm going to replace the x with all of this. So what I'm going to write is I'm going to write 2 parentheses plus 1. I'll be replacing the x with all of function f. X squared plus 2x minus 8. All right, so my outside function was g, and I wrote out function g, but leaving parentheses instead of the x. My inside function is f, and so all of function f went inside of function g. Now distribute and then combine like terms. Morning. All right, distribute 2x squared plus 4x minus 16 plus 1, and then combine these like terms here. All right, when it asks you what is the solution to the system of equations, they are asking you a totally different question. This is like a question from a previous unit, okay? This is a totally different question from a different unit. But it's actually quite easy. Okay, when they ask you what is the solution to the system, they want to know what points do the line and parabola have in common. So the line and parabola have in common this point here, which looks like it's -3, -5. and then this point over here, which looks to be positive 3, positive 7. Okay. So just so you know, that question is not really part of this unit, but we did have a system graph, so it looked interesting to answer that question from a previous unit. All right. One more thing to learn is that there's another way to write g of f of x, and they write it with this little bubble. You can tell the difference between the composition and the multiplication because the bubble is empty. So you see how it's like not filled in? This also means g of f of 4. So it's same as g of f of 4, like that. Doesn't matter. You can put 4 into function f first. So that would be g of, and then we have 4, root 4 like that. Square root of 4 is 2, and 2 times 4 is 8, so g of 8. And then you put 8 into function g. So it would be 8 plus 3, which is 11. Okay, see if you can do anything with B and C. Give them a try. All right, start by putting 6 into function G. So function G is x plus 3, so you're going to do G of 6 is 6 plus 3, which is 9. Then take that 9 and put that into function f. So we're going to do f of 9. F of 9 is 4 root 9. What's the square root of 9? 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. So that's our final answer. All right. I'm going to write this next one with the other notation because I find it a little bit easier to look at. So I'm going to do h of f of x. Remember, it means exactly the same thing. It's just another way of writing it. But now I can have a place to put f of x. So I'm going to put f of x in here. So I have h of 4 root x. And now I'm going to write out function h, but wherever it has an x, I'm going to replace it with this. So function h is x squared. So it's going to be something squared. And inside there, I'm going to put the 4 root x. So I have my outside function in green and my inside function in blue. It does help sometimes to change colors to differentiate your outside function and your inside function. All right. If there was a plus or a minus in here, I could not square each term, but because it's just multiplication, you can square each term. So 4 squared is how much? 16, and the square root of x squared? It's just x, because square root and square cancel out. All right, that part is done.